Makes Us Stronger by A Light in the Shadows. Read by Rat Overlord. Summary. As soon as the problem child entered the bank, Aizawa Shouta should have known trouble would soon follow. Of course, a couple of Yuuei first years couldn't possibly run errands without getting caught up in a bank robbery. Unfortunately, no hero could have prepared for a hostage situation to spiral so far out of control. I just want to make it known that this fic does include graphic depictions of violence, and that includes gun violence. So, if that's something that you're not comfortable with, feel free to click away. And I also just want to say that this is one of my all-time favorite MHA fanfics, so there is that. Chapter 1. Shinso Hitoshi. He pulled down the sleeves of the borrowed shirt. His hands disappeared into the long gray fabric. He wrapped his arms around himself and picked up the pace, ensuring that he didn't fall too far behind the man in front of him. The two hadn't said a word since they left his apartment.
I'm sorry, that shirt's probably too big for you.
The voice nearly made him jump.
I need to stop at the bank first. We'll get you some new clothes and a phone after that.
He looked up to see Shouta glancing at him over his shoulder. Relief flooded through his veins when he noticed the raging fire present in the man's eyes just a few hours prior had died down. He rubbed the back of his neck.
Thanks for lending it to me, Sensei.
The hero waved a hand at him.
There's no need for that outside of school grounds, especially considering the circumstances. Feel free to just call me Aizawa.
Hitoshi blinked and stopped in his tracks.
There's no way I can just... But he's right. Things are different now. I suppose it's not fitting to call him Sensei all the time.
He shook his head and jogged until he caught up and was back at Shota's heels. He stuffed his hands in the pockets of his uniform pants and kept his gaze on the ground.
I'm really sorry you have to. Don't even think about finishing that,
Shouta said, whipping around and looking him in the eye for the first time since that morning.
Nothing about this is your fault, Shinso.
Hitoshi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows.
Is Shinso really appropriate now?
Shouta sighed before continuing on towards the bank with the kid only a step behind him. Hitoshi could have sworn he saw the hero's lips quirk upwards a tad.
You might have a point, but we can discuss that later. You need more clothes, you need a phone, and you need to get settled in. Hizashi and Imori will be by later tonight with dinner. They offered to drop the food off if you're not comfortable with them staying too long.
Hitoshi tensed.
They can stay if they want.
He trailed off.
You don't have to decide right now. They understand it's been a rough few weeks for you, and you might not want company tonight. However, they do insist on coming over after you've had some time to adjust.
Hitoshi nodded, and the two climbed the stone steps leading to the massive windows and the glass door before them. Midoriya Isuku. He grinned once he stepped out of the crowded train station, his face warming up as soon as he stepped out into the sun. He didn't even pay any mind to the bumps from other people rushing to catch their train. Ding! Fishing his phone out of his pocket, he looked over his shoulder to find his mom pushing her way through the crowd. He glanced at his messages and his eyes widened at the next text to come through the group chat.
Todoroki, did we ever agree on a place to meet up?
He couldn't stop the wide smile from spreading across his face, his thumbs tapping rapidly on the keyboard. Midoriya.
Wait, Todoroki, you're actually coming?
Ida.
I don't believe so. How about the south entrance to the mall? Does that work for everybody?
Uraraka. Sounds great, but my train got delayed. I'll be a little late. Todoroki.
It's alright. I'm just leaving now.
Ida.
No worries.
Midoriya.
And see you all soon.
Checking the time and seeing it was only 1 o'clock, he tucked his phone back into his pocket. He hesitantly straightened up and fell into step with his mom while she started down the sidewalk. Aren't you off to meet your friends? She asked.
A couple of them are running late, so I've got some time to kill. Want me to go to the bank with you?
His mom beamed. Of course! I can't remember the last time you had a chance to run an errand with me. Isuku tried to ignore the brief pang in his chest and followed her down the street and around the corner. They walked up the stairs and entered the building. The roar outside dulled the second that the heavy doors swung shut. Not that it mattered once he saw who was standing at the end of the nearest line. He grabbed his mom's arm and took off running.
Aizawa Shouta. Aizawa-sensei!
The voice echoed through the previously quiet lobby, and all eyes in the room were on him. Grateful that his scarf hid most of his quickly reddening face, he turned around. Isugu rushed up to him with a short, green-haired woman in tow.
Midoriya?
He was greeted with a radiant smile. The boy gestured to the woman next to him. It's great to see you! This is my mom. She's been wanting to meet you since... Shinso? Isugu's attention was quickly diverted once he caught sight of the purple-haired teen behind him. I almost didn't recognize you. It feels like it's been forever since... Shouta almost felt sorry for Hitoshi once his student started rambling. He shifted his gaze back to the woman in front of him. She stared at him, seemingly forgetting to blink. He bowed.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Midoriya-san.
His voice shocked her out of her stupor, and she quickly bowed and clasped her hands together by the time that he'd already straightened back up. Please, the honor is definitely mine. I've been hoping to speak with you for a while now.
I'm sorry for that,
There's no reason to apologize, Aizawa-san. I understand it's been quite a busy school year, and I know you've probably been preparing for the finals.
If only it were just the finals,
he thought. Inko bit her lip and crossed her arms. She finally met his gaze. I've been wanting to thank you. Isugu told me so much about you, about everything you did to protect him and his classmates. Shouta fought the urge to sigh and pinch the bridge of his nose.
I appreciate it, but my job is to...
We both know it's not. Inko interrupted again, her cheeks slowly tinting red. And I'm sorry. Isugu warned me that she might say that if I ever got the chance to speak with you, but I don't care. He said you jumped into a horde of villains despite being outnumbered, and you didn't quit fighting until you were nearly killed. You risked your life for my son and his friends, and I've been wanting to express my gratitude for quite some time. I'm sure there are other parents that feel the same way as I do. He took a deep breath and opened his mouth. Does your quirk have a time limit? Do you know how long you can keep control of someone? Is there a range they need to be in? Much to his relief, that caught Inka's attention. They turned to the two boys. She smiled when she got a look at her enthusiastic son and Hitoshi. How rude of me! I didn't even introduce myself to your friend. Wait, I remember you from the sports festival. You did very well. I had to say that quirk of yours is quite impressive. He nearly grinned when Inka rambled. Hitoshi's eyes widened and his brow furrowed. He could imagine the beads of sweat forming from the attention.
But you deserve it, kid. You've worked so hard. Bang!
He whipped around to see a limp woman fall to the ground, blood pooling around her head. A man stood with a pistol only a few meters away. Bang! Another gunshot echoed across the lobby. Screams came a second later, and the four were nearly trampled. He grabbed Hitoshi's shoulders and pushed him towards Inko.
Get Hitoshi out of here!
Wait, Aizawa! He barely saw her nod or register Hitoshi's words before running towards the closest assailant and throwing his capture weapon. It wrapped around the hand holding the gun. Bang! With a yank, he flung the man into a wall, and the pistol skidded across the ground. The din within the lobby roared, nearly drowning out the next gunshot. He wouldn't have known if the bullet hadn't whizzed past him. He activated his quirk. His hair started to float. 5 men stood next to the 3 tellers. One fretted over the 4th teller that was slumped over the counter. Each had an assault rifle in hand.
Where the hell did they come from?
Shouta gripped his scarf.
Bang!
His blood ran cold.
None of those men pulled their triggers. How many of them are there?
Suddenly, a green light danced across the walls and ceiling like little lightning bolts. The walls and ceiling started to glow as if they were being coated by a green light. Shouta slowly backed up. His back hit the wall and electricity pulsed through him. His muscles locked, which sent him crashing to the ground. Planting his hands on the floor, he moved to push himself up, but covered his head when someone tripped over him. He looked up to see a crowd of people at the bank's entrance. The walls and windows were glowing. The crowd was slowly inching away and further back into the lobby.
Is this some sort of force field? Whatever it is, it seems like we're all trapped.
He clenched his teeth and forced himself up and off the ground. His legs were shaking, but he managed to keep his footing.
Bang!
More screams from the already terrified civilians rang through the lobby. A man in gray pants and a black short-sleeved shirt emerged from the crowd. He held a pistol above his head, smoke coming out of the barrel. He had short blonde hair that stopped just below his chin and a bright smile that would easily rival President Mike's.
Now, if everyone could please remain calm, the rest of you won't be harmed.
The announcement fell on deaf ears. Shouta took a shaky step forward, but someone behind him grabbed his scarf. He swung an elbow back, hearing a satisfying grunt from his attacker, but the man didn't let go. He winced when the capture weapon tightened around his neck. He reached back and grabbed one of the hands entangled in his scarf. He knelt down and tugged at the man's wrist, flipping him over his shoulder. The second he righted himself, he narrowly dodged a fist aimed at his head. He pivoted and landed a kick to the man's ribs.
They have guns. Why didn't they just...
He spotted a mess of purple hair in the crowd, and his heart sunk. Inko and Isuku were right by his side. The three were herded further into the lobby by the rest of the civilians, which hadn't calmed in the slightest. The blond man sighed and lowered his arm, finger on the trigger. Shota's eyes widened when he saw his target. Hitoshi seemed to notice as well. The boy yanked the unsuspecting Inko behind him.
No!
He dashed and elbowed his way through the civilians. He lunged. Bang! Fire ripped through his right shoulder, and his vision flashed white.
Shinso, Hitoshi. Get Toshi out of here! Wait, Aizawa!
A set of hands gripped his arms and stopped him from going after his mentor, the man disappearing into the crowd within seconds.
Bang!
Despite the din exploding in the lobby, he could clearly hear the voice next to him. Everything's all right. I'll get you out of here. Inko let go of one of his arms only to grab Isuku's. She weaved them through the crowd with a speed that honestly surprised him. They raced towards the entrance, but slowed when they saw who was coming through the door. 7 armed men now stood in front of the bank. One of them raised a pistol.
Bang!
The man in front of them fell to the ground, wet gasps retching out of him a heartbeat later. Inko skidded to a stop completely, bracing both boys and preventing them from tripping over the body. Hitoshi's stomach lurched as the blood pooled around the man's neck. Everyone froze when the rest of the men raised their weapons. One of them came forward. He gripped the fallen man by the leg and dragged him to the door, red streaks staining the previously pristine white floor. He dumped the body outside and disappeared from view when it rolled down the stone steps.
I have to do something, but there's so many of them. If I can't get them all to respond...
A green light suddenly illuminated the ceiling and walls, entirely covering the front of the bank. An electric hum rang throughout the lobby.
What the hell?
He muttered. Screams from the terrorized civilians drowned it out when the armed men approached the crowd. Inko grabbed his arm again and pulled him and Isuku back through the crowd. There has to be a way out! I need to get them out! He wasn't sure Inko even realized that she said those words out loud. She might have been sure, but she had no problem forcing her way through the crowd with 2 teenage boys in tow. Bang! Hitoshi didn't miss her cringe at the next gunshot. He looked around, his eyes locking on the tall, blond man holding a pistol above his head just a few meters before the trio. The people around him scrambled away, but they were running out of space. More armed men were stationed next to the tellers. His chest tightened.
We're all trapped. Where's Aizawa? If everyone could please remain calm, the rest of you won't be harmed,
the blonde announced. His words did nothing to ease the crowd's fears, if many people heard him at all. Inko was desperately searching for some sort of way out. The man sighed and lowered his arm as he approached them. Hitoshi froze when he saw the gun level with Inko's head.
Shit!
He shook himself out of his stupor and pulled her behind him. A dark blur barreled into him. Bang! Shota's scream came right next to his ear, and he collapsed on top of him and Inko. He let out a grunt when he fell on his back, his eyes widening when he felt something wet seeping onto his shirt.
Aizawa?
It was impossible to get up with the man's dead weight on top of him, but he didn't have to wait long. The blond man stepped closer, a brilliant, almost nearly blinding smile plastered on his face. He yanked Shouta up by his hair and dragged him off of his body. Relief flooded through him when the action elicited a groan out of the hero.
He's not dead. Huh, you're lucky I've got quick reflexes.
The blond man laughed.
Killing the lone hero here would have easily ruined the opportunity so kindly presented to me.
At that, the others trapped in the lobby started to quiet down, a few murmurs stopping the room from entering a petrified silence. He's a hero? Why couldn't he just defeat these villains already? I don't know. I've never seen him before. Maybe he's new?
There's no way that guy's a hero. What the hell does it even matter? He tried to take them down and just got shot.
Hitoshi's blood boiled. He pushed himself up, and Isuku helped his mom to her feet. The blonde dropped Shouta and kicked him onto his back. He stomped down on his right shoulder, and the erasure hero couldn't stop a scream from escaping his gritted teeth. He gripped the blonde's ankle and tried to shove him off, but the foot pinning him down didn't budge.
"What are you doing?"
Hitoshi demanded. He didn't realize he was stalking towards their assailants until Isuku grabbed his arms. The blonde didn't even act like he'd heard him. He motioned with his head, and one of the armed men knelt down to rifle through Shota's pockets. He handed the wallet and phone over. The blonde pulled out a single card, and his smile brightened.
"It's nice to formally meet you, Eraserhead. I thought I was hearing things when one of those kids called you Aizawa-sensei. Then I saw your scarf and I just couldn't believe my luck."
The two students tensed. Hitoshi could see Isuku's gaze on him, but he refused to look away from his mentor. Aizawa's eyes bulged out of his skull when the blonde shifted more weight onto his wound before taking his foot off. The men wasted no time yanking the capture weapon up and over his head. He froze when he heard the police siren, and everyone turned towards the bank's entrance, the siren slowly getting louder.
That didn't take nearly as long as I had expected,"
the blonde grumbled. He straightened up and addressed his men, pointing to Hitoshi and Isuku.
"Get 'em ready, but put the cuffs on those two."
He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a few zip ties.
"I'll take care of little old Eraser here. After all, he's our most valuable hostage."
Oh, it's so exciting to get to PODFIC this. But anyways, if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like or comment down below because I love hearing from you guys. And make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with whenever I post. And as always, here's your little daily reminder to hydrate, not dehydrate, and also to love yourself, y'all.